Respect it. If a man can go days without talking to you, without checking on your heart, without wondering how your soul is doing, then you need to stop asking why he's silent and start asking why you keep calling silence love. Because real love does not leave you emotionally starving while you beg for crumbs of attention. There's a woman listening to me right now who keeps staring at her phone every night. Every vibration makes her heart jump. Every notification gives her hope. She tells herself he's busy. She tells herself he's stressed. She tells herself maybe he just needs space. But deep down, she knows something feels wrong. And the hardest part about this kind of pain is that nobody sees it. People see you smiling at work. They see you posting pictures. They hear you laughing with friends, but they don't hear the conversations you have with yourself at 2 a.m. when you're trying to figure out how someone who once talked to you every day suddenly became comfortable living without your voice. See, one of the most dangerous things in relationships is inconsistency, because consistency creates security, but inconsistency creates confusion. And confused people start abandoning themselves just to keep somebody else comfortable. You start lowering your standards. You start over-explaining. You start accepting behavior you once promised yourself you would never tolerate. And little by little, you lose your peace trying to hold on to somebody who stopped holding on to you a long time ago. I learned something about people a long time ago. When somebody truly values your presence, they protect the connection. They don't disappear for days and then return acting like nothing happened. They don't leave you emotionally suspended in the air while they decide when they feel like caring. A person who genuinely loves you may get busy sometimes, yes. Life happens. Work happens. Stress happens. But even during chaos, people make time for what matters to them. Let me tell you something painful but necessary. Some people love the idea of you more than the responsibility of loving you. They love your comfort. They love your attention. They love the emotional support you provide. But they do not love you enough to show up consistently. And many women stay trapped because they keep remembering who he used to be instead of accepting who he is right now. You keep replaying old memories in your head. The good mornings, the late night calls, the way he once made you. You feel chosen. But hear me carefully, memories can become emotional handcuffs when you use the past to excuse the present. A man's behavior eventually tells the truth his words are trying to hide. If he can comfortably go days without hearing your voice, then you need to understand something. Emotionally, he is already teaching you where you stand in his priorities. Now listen, this is not about punishing him. This is not about playing games. This is not about becoming cold-hearted. This is about waking up emotionally, because too many good people are out here loving others harder than they love themselves. You know what happens when someone keeps ignoring you? You begin questioning your worth. You start wondering if you're too much, too emotional, too needy, too sensitive. You're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong person. There's a difference. See, when someone truly wants you in their life, communication does not feel like a battle. You don't have to chase. Consistency. You don't have to beg for clarity. You don't have to constantly decode mixed signals like you're solving a mystery. A healthy connection gives peace. An unhealthy one gives anxiety. And some of you have become so used to emotional chaos that peace now feels unfamiliar. That's why when somebody treats you right, you don't trust it. But when somebody ignores you, suddenly you become obsessed with earning their attention. That's not love. That's emotional survival mode. I remember hearing about a woman who spent 3 years waiting for a man to become emotionally available. 3 years. Every time he disappeared, he came back with just enough affection to keep her attached. And every time she tried to leave, he suddenly remembered how much he cared. But caring without consistency is manipulation. Read that again in your spirit. Because some people don't miss you when you're gone. They miss the access they had to you. They miss the emotional convenience. They miss knowing you'll always be there no matter how little effort they give. And one day, that woman finally got tired. Not angry, not bitter, just tired. Tired of crying quietly. Tired of explaining her pain to somebody committed to misunderstanding it. Tired of shrinking herself just to avoid being called too emotional. And the moment she stopped chasing him, something powerful happened. She started finding herself again. She slept peacefully. She laughed more. She stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. She stopped measuring her value by somebody else's attention. And listen to me carefully. The moment you stop begging for bare minimum behavior is the moment your healing truly begins. Some of you are addicted to potential. You keep falling in love with who someone could become instead of accepting who they are right now. But potential has broken more hearts than reality ever did. You cannot build a future on inconsistency. You cannot build trust on silence. You cannot build intimacy with somebody who only shows up when it's convenient. And I know this hurts, especially when you genuinely love somebody, especially when you've invested your time, your loyalty, your prayers, your energy. But love should not feel like emotional starvation. You should not have to earn basic communication from somebody who claims to care about you. A mature relationship is not built on guessing games. It's built on reassurance, effort, presence, intentionality. See, some people only realize your value once your absence becomes permanent. But your job is not to disappear just to teach someone how to appreciate you. Your job is to value yourself enough to walk away from what keeps draining your spirit. And I know some of you are scared of letting go because you're afraid you won't find love again. But let me ask you something. What exactly are you afraid of losing? The silence, the inconsistency, the anxiety, the sleepless nights? Sometimes we become so afraid of loneliness that we stay connected to things that make us feel alone anyway. That's the tragedy. You can be in constant contact with somebody and still feel emotionally abandoned. And there comes a moment in life when you have to stop romanticizing struggle. Stop calling pain loyalty. Stop calling confusion love. Stop calling inconsistency complicated. Some situations are not complicated. They are simply unhealthy. And healing begins the moment you stop making excuses for behavior that continuously breaks your heart. Because the truth is, the right person will never make you feel like communication with you is a burden. The right person won't disappear for days and return expecting access to your heart like nothing happened. The right person will protect your emotional safety because they understand how valuable trust really is. And until that kind of love arrives, you must learn how to become emotionally unavailable to disrespect. Not love, disrespect. There's a difference. You can have compassion without abandoning yourself. You can understand somebody's struggles without tolerating neglect. You can love deeply and still choose yourself. That's maturity. And maybe this season of your life is not about finding love from somebody else. Maybe it's about finally giving yourself the love you've been begging others to provide. Maybe it's about remembering who you were before inconsistency made you insecure. Maybe it's about understanding that your worth was never supposed to be placed in somebody else's hands, because a person who truly values you will never repeatedly gamble with your emotions. And if somebody can go days without talking to you while knowing it hurts you, then you need to stop fighting for their attention and start fighting for your peace. Because peace is expensive. And anything that constantly disturbs your peace costs too much. You know what hurts the most? It's not always the silence itself. Sometimes it's the memories attached to the silence. It's remembering how close you once were, how effortless it all felt in the beginning, how he used to call just to hear your voice, how he used to text you first thing in the morning and last thing before bed. And now, hours turn into days and days turn into emotional distance you can no longer ignore. That kind of shift can break a person slowly. Because when someone changes suddenly, your heart starts searching for answers your mind cannot find. You replay conversations trying to discover where things went wrong. You wonder if you said too much, if you loved too deeply, if you somehow became less interesting, less attractive, less worthy. But let me tell you something powerful today. People's inability to love you correctly is not proof that you are hard to love. Read that carefully in your soul. Sometimes the issue is not your value. The issue is their emotional capacity. And many people are emotionally unavailable without ever admitting it. They want connection, but not responsibility. They want intimacy, but not accountability. They want your loyalty, your understanding, your patience, but they don't want to consistently pour back into you. So you end up carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship while convincing yourself it's normal. You become the one initiating conversations, the one checking in, the one fixing every argument, the one apologizing just to restore peace, the one overthinking every silence while they sleep peacefully at night. And after a while, exhaustion enters your spirit because one-sided love will drain even the strongest heart. I once heard a man say, if she loves me enough, she'll wait. And that sentence bothered me deeply because too many people mistake patience for permission to neglect somebody. Love should never require you to abandon your dignity just to prove your devotion. You should not have to suffer endlessly to demonstrate loyalty. As some of you listening right now have confused endurance with love. You think staying through emotional neglect makes your love more meaningful. But staying in places where your heart is constantly breaking does not make you strong. Sometimes it simply means you forgot your own worth. See, emotionally unavailable people have a pattern. They give you just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but never enough to make you feel secure. And insecurity creates attachment. That's why you keep waiting for the next text, the next apology, the next tiny moment of affection, because your heart becomes addicted to inconsistency. One day they're warm, the next day they're distant. One moment you feel chosen, the next moment you feel invisible. That emotional roller coaster can make even confident people question themselves. But healthy love is stable. It does not constantly leave you emotionally dizzy. You know what real love sounds like? Did you make it home safely? How was your day? I know you're hurting. Let's talk. I'm busy, but I'm thinking about you. Small things, simple things, consistent things, because love is not only measured by grand gestures, it is measured by presence. Anybody can say, I miss you, but not everybody will consistently show up for you. And one of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that words can comfort you while actions quietly destroy you. See, actions are truth. Consistency is truth. Effort is truth. People reveal their priorities through patterns, not promises. Now listen carefully, because this part may sting a little. Some people only communicate with you when they feel lonely, bored, guilty, or emotionally empty. And because you genuinely care, you mistake their temporary attention for genuine commitment. So every time they return, your hope returns with them. And hope can be dangerous when it's attached to somebody who has no intention of changing. That's why healing requires honesty. Not fantasy, not excuses, honesty. You have to stop asking yourself, what if he changes? And start asking, what if he never does? Could you survive another year feeling emotionally neglected? Another year of inconsistent affection? Another year of questioning your worth every time his attention disappears? At some point, you have to decide that your peace matters too. And I know many people stay because they fear starting over. But there is something more painful than starting over. Wasting years of your life waiting for somebody to become who they already showed you they are not. Time is precious. Your emotional energy is precious. Your heart is precious. Stop handing those things to people who handle them carelessly. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking up one day and no longer feeling anxious about whether somebody texted you back. Imagine no longer crying over delayed replies. Imagine feeling emotionally secure because your happiness is no longer tied to somebody else's inconsistency. That freedom changes people, because the moment you stop chasing unavailable love, you create room for peace to enter your life. And peace is beautiful. Peace allows you to sleep at night. Peace allows you to smile genuinely again. Peace allows you to focus on your purpose instead of obsessing over somebody's silence. Some of you have spent so much time trying to be chosen that you forgot you already have value without their validation. You don't become worthy because somebody texts you consistently. You are already worthy before they arrived. Never forget that. And sometimes life removes certain people from your emotional comfort because keeping them would destroy your emotional health. Not every ending is punishment. Sometimes endings are protection. See, God will sometimes expose inconsistency because he knows you deserve stability. But many people ignore the signs because they're attached to potential. Potential is seductive. Potential whispers, maybe tomorrow will be different. But reality keeps repeating the same lesson until you finally accept it. If somebody repeatedly shows you emotional inconsistency, believe the pattern. Not the apology, not the excuse, the pattern. Because patterns tell the truth, emotions try to hide. I remember a woman saying, every time I finally start healing, he comes back. And that happens often. The moment you begin emotionally detaching, people suddenly feel your absence. Not because they transformed overnight, but because your energy was feeding parts of them they didn't appreciate until it disappeared. But hear me carefully. Someone missing your presence does not always mean they are prepared to value it properly. And too many people return with words instead of changed behavior. Don't confuse temporary attention with transformation. Real change is consistent. Real growth is visible. Real love feels safe, not confusing, not draining, not emotionally exhausting. Some of you are trying to water dead plants emotionally. You keep pouring love into places where nothing healthy is. You're not growing anymore. And your spirit is tired because deep down, you already know the truth your heart keeps resisting. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is not to a person. It's to the version of the future you imagine with them. That's what truly hurts. The dreams, the plans, the emotional investment. But losing a fantasy is sometimes necessary to save your reality. And your reality deserves peace. Your reality deserves reciprocity. Your reality deserves consistency. Your reality deserves somebody. Who does not disappear emotionally every time life becomes inconvenient? Because mature love does not vanish under pressure. It communicates. It reassures. It stays connected even during difficult seasons. And if somebody repeatedly leaves you emotionally starving, stop calling it love simply because your feelings are deep. Deep feelings alone do not create healthy relationships. Mutual effort does. And one day you're going to realize something powerful. The right person will never make you. You feel guilty for wanting basic communication. The right person will never leave you questioning where you stand every few days. The right person will never force you to constantly earn reassurance that should already exist naturally. And until that love arrives, protect your heart enough to stop settling for emotional crumbs while calling it a feast. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they are going to keep chasing love or finally become the kind of person who no longer abandons themselves for it. And that moment is painful because letting go of someone you deeply care about is not easy, especially when you remember the version of them that once made you feel special. Your heart keeps saying, maybe if I hold on a little longer, things will go back to how they used to be. But sometimes we suffer because we are trying to resurrect seasons that already ended. Life changes people. Feelings change. Intentions change. And maturity is accepting reality instead of fighting it endlessly. You know what many people do when somebody stops communicating consistently? They panic emotionally. They start texting more, calling more, pleading more, over-explaining more. They think if I can just make him understand how much this hurts me, maybe he'll change. But here's the truth, most people learn too late. You cannot convince somebody to value you. You cannot force emotional maturity into somebody who is comfortable being emotionally careless. And every time you beg for consistency, a piece of your self-respect quietly disappears. Now hear me clearly. There is nothing wrong with expressing your needs. Healthy communication matters. But there's a difference between communicating your feelings once and repeatedly begging somebody to treat you with basic care. At some point, repeated explanations become self-betrayal. Because if somebody continuously hurts you after fully understanding your pain, the issue is no longer misunderstanding. The issue is disregard. And that realization can break your heart. I remember hearing a story about a woman who loved a man so deeply that she tolerated years of emotional inconsistency. Some days he made her feel adored. Other days he vanished completely. She spent countless nights wondering what she did wrong. One evening she sat alone in her car crying after another ignored message. And suddenly she asked herself one question that changed her life forever. Why am I fighting so hard to keep? Somebody who barely fights to keep me? That question woke her up. Because sometimes pain is not there to destroy you. Sometimes pain is there to expose what your heart has been refusing to accept. And some of you have been receiving signs for months, maybe years. The unanswered messages, the emotional distance, the lack of effort, the inconsistency, the empty promises. But because you love deeply, you keep translating disrespect into temporary confusion. Love makes people hopeful, but wisdom makes people honest, and you need both. See, emotionally healthy people do not leave you constantly confused about where you stand. They don't create emotional instability and call it love. They don't disappear for days knowing it triggers your anxiety and then expect immediate access to your heart when they return. That's not emotional maturity. That's emotional convenience. And convenience is not commitment. Some people keep you emotionally nearby because they enjoy having access to your energy. They know your loyalty benefits them. They know your love is genuine. They know you'll answer the phone. They know you'll forgive quickly. But they also know they can disappear without consequences. That's why boundaries matter. Not because you hate people, not because you're bitter, but because self-respect requires limits. A person who truly values you will respect boundaries. A person who only values access will resist them. And many of you are terrified of setting boundaries. You fear losing people, but let me tell you something life taught me. The people who disappear when you finally require respect were never truly there for the right reasons to begin with. Read that slowly in your spirit. You should not have to shrink your needs to maintain somebody's presence. If asking for communication pushes somebody away, then they were already halfway gone emotionally. Now I know some people listening are thinking, but I love him. And I understand that. Love is powerful. Love creates attachment. Love creates memories that are hard to release. But love without reciprocity becomes suffering. You cannot pour endlessly into somebody who continuously leaves your cup empty. One-sided relationships create emotional burnout. You become mentally exhausted because your heart is carrying responsibilities two people were supposed to share together. And eventually your body starts feeling the stress too. You lose sleep, you lose focus, you lose joy, you lose parts of yourself trying to maintain a connection that no longer feels safe. That's why healing is not only emotional, it's spiritual, mental, physical. Your peace matters more than your attachment. And one of the most mature things you can ever say is this: I love you, but I cannot continue losing myself trying to keep you. That sentence changes lives. Because real self-love is not just bubble baths and positive quotes. Real self-love is having the courage to walk away from anything that repeatedly damages your emotional well-being, even when it hurts, even when you miss them, even when part of you still hopes they'll change. Growth often hurts before it heals. And listen carefully, the loneliness you feel after walking away is temporary, but the damage caused by staying too long in unhealthy situations can follow you for years. Some people are still healing from relationships that ended long ago because they stayed past the point where their spirit was already breaking. Don't ignore emotional exhaustion. It's your soul asking for change. See, when somebody can comfortably go days without hearing from you while knowing how deeply connected you are to them, that tells you something important. Emotionally, they are functioning fine without consistent closeness. And that truth may hurt, but it also frees you. Because once you stop romanticizing somebody's potential, you can finally see their reality clearly. Reality says consistency matters, effort matters, communication matters, emotional safety matters. Stop acting like these needs are too much. You know what's sad? Many people will tolerate emotional neglect because they fear being labeled difficult, so they silence themselves. They pretend they're okay with distance. They suppress their feelings just to avoid seeming needy. But healthy love does not punish vulnerability. Healthy love welcomes honesty. A mature partner wants to know when you're hurting because your emotional well-being matters to them. And if somebody repeatedly dismisses your emotional needs, stop trying to prove your worth to them. Your worth is not a debate. The right person will recognize your value naturally. You won't have to compete for attention. You won't have to beg for consistency. You won't have to earn basic respect. One day you're going to experience a love that feels calm instead of chaotic. And when that happens, you'll finally understand how exhausting it was trying to force connection with emotionally unavailable people. Because real love does not keep you in survival mode. Real love allows you to breathe. And maybe that's what you need most right now. Not another apology. Not another temporary return. Not another late night text filled with empty promises. Maybe what you truly need is peace. The kind of peace that arrives when you stop chasing people who are comfortable losing you. The kind of peace that comes from finally choosing yourself. And let me tell you something beautiful. The moment you stop begging for love is the moment you become ready to receive healthy love. Because healthy love is attracted to self-respect. Healthy love is attracted to emotional maturity. Healthy love grows where peace already exists. So stop measuring your value by somebody's inconsistency. You are not hard to love. You are simply learning that not everybody has the emotional depth to love you properly. And that realization will save your life one day when you finally reach that point in your life where you stop chasing. Something almost uncomfortable happens at first. Silence. Not their silence, yours. The silence of your own thoughts settling down after months or even years of emotional chaos. And in that silence, reality starts speaking louder than your feelings. You start remembering every moment you ignored your own intuition. Every time you felt something was off, but you still chose to stay. Every time you accepted less just to avoid losing someone who was already halfway gone emotionally. And now you see it clearly. You were not crazy for feeling distant energy. You were not overthinking. You were not too emotional. You were simply trying to love someone who was not showing up for you in the same way. And that's where your transformation begins. Because once clarity enters, attachment starts losing its power. You stop romanticizing who they were in the beginning and you start acknowledging who they are consistently. And consistency, that is the truth you can trust. You begin to understand something life tries to teach everyone eventually. Access to you is a privilege, not a default. Your time, your emotions, your attention, your loyalty, they are not things to be given to someone who treats them casually. As slowly, your standards start rising again, not from ego, but from experience, from pain, from awareness. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth to anyone who cannot see it naturally. You stop explaining your heart to people who are committed to you, misunderstanding it. You stop reopening emotional doors that were never respected in the first place. And here's the shift that changes everything inside you. You realize that peace is not found in who stays or who leaves. Peace is found in who you decide to stop chasing. Because the moment you stop running after inconsistency, you start walking toward yourself again. And that version of you, the one who was buried under waiting, overthinking, and hoping, starts coming back to life. Stronger, calmer, clearer. And now, instead of asking why someone could go days without talking to you, you finally understand the real question was never about them. It was always about you. Why did I allow myself to stay where I was not valued? And the answer to that question becomes your growth. Because from this moment forward, you don't just want love anymore. You want consistency. You want respect. You want emotional safety. You want peace. And anything less than that is no longer confusing. It is simply not for you anymore. And now you've reached a place most people never reach. The place where love is no longer confusion. The place where silence no longer controls your emotions. The place where you are no longer negotiating your worth with someone else's attention. Because when you truly wake up to this truth, you stop asking, why can he go days without talking to me? And you start realizing the real question was never about him. It was always about what you were willing to tolerate in the name of love. And listen to me carefully now. You are not meant to be someone's emotional option. You are not meant to sit in uncertainty waiting for consistency that never arrives. You are not meant to shrink your needs just to keep someone comfortable in your life. Love is not supposed to feel like waiting. Love is not supposed to feel like guessing. Love is not supposed to feel like you're constantly proving your value. Real love feels steady. Real love feels present. Real love feels safe. And if it does not feel like that, then it is not the love you are meant to stay in. Because at the end of the day, the greatest relationship you will ever have is not with someone else. It is with yourself. And the moment you choose yourself without guilt, the moment you stop chasing people who are okay without you, the moment you stop overgiving to those who under-receive you, you don't lose love. You find peace. And in that peace, something powerful happens. You become the kind of person who no longer settles for inconsistency. You become the kind of person who no longer confuses attention with love. You become the kind of person who recognizes their own value without needing validation. And one day, real love will not come to chase you. It will come to match you. But only after you stop running after what was never meant to stay. So let them go. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. Because the moment you choose your peace over there, inconsistency, you don't just heal your heart, you reclaim your life.